right, if you are watching this video, you have finished designing your marble maze and yours should look something like this. You should have saved it normally first and then done an export as a JPEG and changed it into grayscale, that sort of thing. If you didn't do that, backtrack, watch the end of the last video, make sure you have your marble maze finished and saved as a JPEG. So using our link from our slide in here, okay, so we're going to convert from JPEG to STL. So in here, you will have to find that JPEG file. So sometimes our computers or Chromebooks save them in a goofy spot. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click my choose file. And then in here, oops, you can see I was working on yearbook stuff. I'm going to go find my JPEG item. So mine is right here, AMO Maze. So I'm going to go ahead and click and open that one. Make sure it's your JPEG and not your CDR or your Corel Draw file. Big difference between those two. So I have my JPEG. I'm going to convert it to an STL, and I'm going to go ahead and click convert. So while that's converting, or it's pretty quick, I'm going to go ahead and now download that STL, and then I'm going to go to my TinkerCAD. Okay. Now, when it does download from that AnyConvert, it does kind of change the name a little bit. So you'll have to find that, but hopefully you know which one it is. Here in Corel Draw, we're going to go ahead and create a new file. So click that blue new, and then make sure that it's a 3D design. And then once it loads in, let's make sure we change our file name right away. So I'm going to go ahead, AM0 maze, do your initials, your hour, and then what it is. So my defaults are still in here. It's in here as inches. That's what we want, etc. I'm going to go ahead and go to import. And then we're going to, if you're on the same device that you just downloaded that STL, the nice thing is I can just click and drag that file in. It's going to look like this. Now, the problem is when we import files, it sometimes starts to change the size of that file. So this next step is important. For your dimensions down here, we're actually going to, we don't want it to come in as 1 millimeter. That would be way too small. We're going to make this 102 wide, 102 long, 102 wide. And let's see if it lets us change this one. Okay, so don't change that. We'll change that one later. So let's just do 102 for our length and our width. It kind of defaults and changes that height. We'll use whatever it brings in. We'll change that later. And I'm going to go ahead and click import. Give it a little bit of time to think. If it shows kind of the red lines, you'll want to leave that there. So looking at this one, that actually looks pretty good. So I have all my walls and we have this thicker border along the outside so we can glue our acrylic piece on the top when we're done. Now, sometimes when you come in, sometimes there might be like a diagonal piece that kind of cuts through and you might have to get rid of that. If that happens, you just raise your hand, let me know, and I can give you kind of the easy workaround for that. But from here, we have kind of our maze design in, but now we need to make sure that it's kind of all together so that we can actually put the little metal ball into it, put the acrylic on top, and then now it's a working maze. So clearly we need a bottom to our maze, and then we want to make sure that our maze is the right height. So by bringing this in kind of at the size it's at, we should be able to add kind of a red cube here. You might have to change kind of your view on it. We want to make this red cube 4x4. So 4 inches there, 4 inches there. Okay, so I get that kind of where we want it. And then thickness wise, kind of down at the bottom of our maze, we are just going to make it 1/8 of an inch thick down at the bottom. Makes it thin enough so it prints faster, but then it's thick enough so that it's sturdy. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this white square at the top, and I'm just going to push this down until I see that it has the 1/8 there. And then we're just going to kind of line that up with the marble maze that we have. I think the easiest way to then do that would be to select both shapes. So let's go over this way. So again, select both shapes. You can draw a box around them. I'm going to go to my align tool, and I'm going to align my middle X and my middle Y. And that should kind of give those two lined up quite perfectly. And that looks pretty good to me. Perfect. So let's go ahead and group these together since they are where we want them to be. Actually, no, hold on. Backtrack. Ungroup those. So I just did a Control-Z real quick. So I have my two different colors here because before we group them, we need to change the height of this maze. So the big thing with the height of it is that we need to make sure that there's enough space between the maze. Put the ball in there and then the acrylic on top so the ball can still move around. So essentially the ball itself, we're trying to leave 0.3 of an inch space for the ball. And then we just added a 1/8 of an inch base there. So the ball sitting on top of the base. That base is 0.125. That's the decimal equivalent of 1/8 plus 0.3. That means, okay, I'm going to click on just my maze here, and we want this maze to be 0.425. Oops, I didn't type in. Let me try that again. I created a note. I'm going to delete that out. So I'm going to click on my maze, click on the square here. Okay, we want it to be 0.425 inches tall. You'll see that's going to shrink it down. And what that's doing is that's leaving the perfect amount of height for the ball here to be in the maze. Okay, so just for recap, we added that base down at the bottom, and then I clicked on the maze, and it should be the maze itself should be a height of 0.425. That's incorporating the 1/8 of an inch at the bottom and then enough space for your ball between your acrylic. Now I can group these together. So I'm going to draw that box around both. I'm going to hit group. We know they're grouped because they're the same color. You can kind of change that color up as you like. It does not matter what color it's on your screen. But once we have those grouped together, once we have those correct heights and measurements, and I can double check here. So as long as when I click on the corners here that it's about that 4 inches, that's all we want. If you want it to be that exact, you could change and type it in, but sometimes it gets a little tiny bit thicker. Not a problem. So from here, I'm done. I'm designed. It's all one piece. It's together. I'm ready to print. So this is where you're going to export as an STL. You'll see that download. Go upload this into Google Classroom into our file where we always put those, and then go sign up by the 3D printers. Tell me what color you want it printed. If you have any questions, let me know.